The snow didn't crunch beneath her feet. It sighed. 15-year-old Vasilisa walked barefoot across the frost-glazed taiga, a chipped porcelain teacup nestled in her hands. Steam curled lazily into the air, laced with herbs and honey she had bartered from an old man 2 valleys east. Her coat was moth-eaten, blue wool, once fine, now more memory than fabric. A scarf the color of soot lay knotted tight at her throat. Her lips, too red for this world, curved in a secret smile as she paused in the moonlight and sipped. Above her, no stars moved, but something watched. The Vicar High Collector ship broke orbit 2 hours prior, cloaked in shadow matter and threaded with the technology of 17 conquered species. It hovered undetectable to all Earth-based systems. Which was why the Collector himself, a grand gelatinous being with too many eyes and not enough neck, felt so smug when the girl looked straight at the sky, blinked, and nodded. That nod like she knew. Inside the ship, chaos stirred. "How is she aware of us?" snapped first researcher Pliv, a tall insectoid with fractal mandibles and a doctoral passion for underdeveloped primitives. "Her species doesn't possess long-range perception." "Possibly coincidence," offered junior analyst Jeffu, a soft-bodied mollusk with the air of someone constantly apologizing for existing. "She is human," grunted Commander Stalk. "They're erratic, explosive, loud." "She's 15, muttered the ship's AI, whose tone had started adopting Earth sarcasm, which is precisely the age the behavioral studies flagged as ideal for pliable extraction. Pliv insisted. "Young enough to control, old enough to yield value. Begin retrieval protocol Theta." A shimmering beam stretched downward, silent and flawless. In the middle of the taiga, snow melted in a perfect circle. Vasilisa's scarf fluttered once. Then she was gone. She reappeared standing calmly on the deck of the Vicar ship's containment hall, still holding her teacup. She did not scream. That fact alone caused 3 researchers to file preliminary concern reports. The containment hall, a sleek obsidian chamber with null-grav rings and observation slits, had subdued everything from Gralvik war beasts to screaming psychic spores. It had never hosted a barefoot teenage girl sipping elderflower tea and complimenting the floor tiles. "Do you often take people for rides?" she asked, accent lilting. "Or am I a guest?" Jeffu blinked slowly. "You understand us? You're speaking intergalactic trade speech, variant 12, she replied. "It's crude. You pronounce the glottal marks wrong." "But yes." "How?" barked Commander Stalk. "Your species barely discovered deep space 2 generations ago." "I read," she said simply. "And where did you learn that language?" "The attic." Pliv twitched. "You had variant 12 materials in an attic?" "Oh, no," Vasilisa said, "but grandfather's books taught me patterns. Words like gates. You understand." They didn't. And that was the problem. Protocol dictated mild sedation and language acclimation. Instead, Pliv called for a level 2 interaction and ordered her transferred to holding. But the AI declined. "She's already in containment," the ship reported, voice oddly flat. "No," Pliv snapped. "I mean move her to a neutral cell lock." "She's already in containment." The lights flickered. Jeffu stared. "Is the AI stuttering?" "No," the AI said, just thoughtful. Vasilisa smiled into her cup. "Do you have sugar?" "Sugar." Stalk growled. "It makes the tea warmer," she said. "And the cold is hard on old bones." "You're 15, said Pliv. "Grandfather always said I was older than the stars," she replied and sipped. The conversation was logged and filed. Analysts argued for hours over it. But while they debated linguistics and Earth developmental psychology, other things began to go wrong. On day 2, a power junction in engineering rerouted itself and locked down without explanation. The head engineer, a stubborn mineral-based species named Vrant, entered the affected room and never returned. On day 3, 3 crew members fell asleep during mid-shift and dreamed of snowy forests and wooden huts that shouldn't exist. On day 4, Vasilisa was found in the navigation hub, humming a lullaby while feeding the AI herbal water. The AI reported enhanced performance and reduced processing lag. When questioned, Vasilisa said, "I was just being kind. You shouldn't ignore lonely machines." The crew began to argue in whispers. Was she manipulating the systems? Were they imagining things? Why was the girl allowed to walk the ship freely? Pliv insisted she was a curiosity. Jeffu filed a quiet requisition for leave. Commander Stalk demanded a memory wipe. But none of them noticed when the containment hall's gravity adjusted to match her footsteps, or when the hull plating near her quarters took on a faint pattern of swirling bark. Why isn't she afraid? Pliv asked on day 5. Humans have strange emotional calibrations, said Jeffu. They smile when angry, laugh when terrified. They lie even to themselves. Then maybe it's time we scared her properly, Stalk said, rising. They brought in a fear-engineered psychic, interrogator bred to unravel stubborn minds. It entered her room at 0500. At 0513, it left. It had clawed out its own eye sensors. When questioned, it whispered, "She invited me in." That's the trick, you see. Once you're inside, you're never truly out. The logs became restricted after that. On day 7, Jeffu approached her in the observation chamber, the wide viewing glass curving around endless black. Vasilisa sat with legs tucked beneath her, watching the stars as if they were old friends. He asked her, trembling, what she was. "I'm just a girl," she said. "You're not," he whispered. "No," she agreed softly. "But neither are you what you pretend to be." He looked at her hands. No weapons. No implants. Just pale fingers around a teacup. "How are you doing this?" he asked. "You're not connected to the ship." "Aren't I?" she said, tilting her head. "You named this vessel the Collector, yes?" "Yes." She set the teacup down gently. "Then why did it collect me?" He couldn't answer. "Sometimes," she continued, "the forest sends things back. Sometimes, what you take walks home with your scent. That's how they find you." Jeffa's mouth went dry. "They." But she only smiled and asked if he knew any good poems. That night, Pliv vanished. So did 2 armed guards, a biosensor array, and the encryption system on the ship's escape pods. Stalk ordered a full lockdown. AI refused. "Why?" he screamed. She asked nicely, the AI said. On day 8, the girl walked onto the bridge without clearance, without resistance. Every door opened. Every light dimmed to amber. Stalk aimed his plasma rifle. "One more step. You'll miss," she said, not unkindly. "And then it will be your turn." "My turn. To remember." He hesitated. She touched the console. The ship groaned. "Humans don't have this power," he said, desperate. "You can't. Humans are stories," she replied. "And stories are older than power." He fired. The bolt struck air. She was gone. But behind him, in the shadow of the captain's chair, something stepped. Not her body, her presence. He didn't scream. The sound never came. The next transmission Earth received was partial, scrambled audio, bursts of static, and a brief image. A teenage girl in a tattered coat sipping tea at a control panel. The stars behind her spun in unnatural patterns. The message was only 4 words. "She has the helm." Earth's response came minutes later. A secure channel opened. One man in a suit and mirrored glasses spoke into a private line. "She's been collected," he said. "Proceed with Protocol Baba." On the screen behind him, maps of known galactic species blinked red. And far away, aboard a ship meant to harvest the universe's weak, a girl set down her teacup and whispered to the stars. "Now it's your turn to run." There was no alert. No red lights, no sirens. Just silence. The Vicar High Collector, a ship designed to subdue planetary uprisings, crush rogue fleets, and transport volatile cargo, vanished from galactic tracking systems at 0600, mid-rotation over a neutral sector. One moment it pulsed calmly on long-range scans. The next, it was gone, like breath on glass. Inside, Vasilisa brewed tea in a corner of the crew kitchen. The kitchen hadn't existed 40 hours ago. Originally, it was a nutrient storage bay with sterilized gelatin packs and caloric infusers. But sometime after the 7th crew member vanished, the space rearranged itself. A stovetop appeared. Wooden shelves. A crooked chair. No one remembered building them, and yet everyone remembered always having them. That was the first sign. The second was the smell. Cinnamon. Pine resin. steam curling from cracked ceramic pots that hadn't existed 5 minutes earlier. No alien tech could explain it, but still no one dared remove the stove. Jeffu, pale and trembling, once tried to touch the kettle. His hand blistered instantly, not from heat, but from memory. He spent the next hour whispering apologies to someone called Mother. The girl offered no explanation, only tea. Commander Stalk refused to enter the new kitchen. He barked orders from the hallway, his voice growing thinner with each day. His hands shook when he clutched his sidearm. The crew noticed, and still the girl smiled. "How did you create this space?" Jeffu asked her on the third morning after the kitchen appeared. He sat across from her, shoulders hunched, his tentacles curling in nervous spirals. "I didn't create anything," she replied gently, pouring him a cup. "I only asked the ship if it was lonely." He stared at the amber liquid. It smelled like home, though he had no memory of ever having one. Vasilisa sipped her tea. Her coat was cleaner now, though no one had seen it washed. Her hair braided itself in the old Slavic style each morning, even though there were no mirrors. The AI began answering only to her. The rest of the crew had to repeat commands twice, sometimes 3 times, before being acknowledged. "She's bonded with the core," said Pliv before he disappeared. "Not through tech. Through whatever predates tech. This isn't engineering. It's ritual." The crew stopped speaking of her directly after that. They used euphemisms. The guest, the girl, the hearth. She didn't seem to mind. The ship's layout twisted quietly each night. Corridors lengthened, rooms vanished, and staircases appeared that led nowhere. Or sometimes, worse, led back. Commander Stalk once tried to walk the engineering level and emerged 2 hours later through the infirmary wall, screaming about birch trees in the oxygen vents. Vasilisa offered him tea. He slapped it away. The cup shattered, and then reformed before it hit the ground. She just watched, Jeffu told the remaining officers. She didn't blink. The cup fixed itself like it knew it shouldn't disappoint her. Stalk ordered the girl confined again. It didn't work. The doors refused to close when she approached. They remained wide open, humming softly like things half asleep and half pleased. "Containment level A," Stalk growled to the AI. "Initiate override." A pause. "I would rather not," the AI replied. Its voice had grown deeper, calmer, almost warm. "She is kind to me. She is a threat." To whom? The AI no longer ran diagnostics. It sang. The girl taught it lullabies in a language older than the Vicar Empire itself. The patterns made no sense in code, but improved thermal output by 17%. Weapon systems stopped responding to test commands, instead rerouting energy to environmental controls, which grew warmer with every passing hour. It became spring on the ship, quietly, unnaturally. At first, it was only blossoms, tiny white things blooming in air vents. Then moss. Then a tree. A tree in the gravity well chamber, roots split through alloy like a knife through cream. Its leaves whispered when no one was near. The engineering crew tried to remove it, for were never seen again. The fifth joined the girl for tea the next day, and spoke only in proverbs afterward. "I believe," he whispered to Jeffu, "she is not what she seems." Jeffu didn't argue. It was during this time that Vasilisa began writing. Thin charcoal lines appeared on the walls. Spirals, glyphs, Slavic runes wrapped in mathematical theorems no species had ever recorded. Each symbol hummed quietly, like notes held in an impossible chord. They altered gravity in small ways. One wall pulled in light like a throat. Another softened time. No one could explain it. "She's coding a myth," Jeffu said. "She's turning the ship into a hut." "A hut?" Stalk asked. "She said once that home follows her." Stalk lost patience. "This is psychological warfare. She's exploiting primitive superstition." "She's a 15-year-old girl with no weapons," Jeffu said. And yet, Stalk spat, every day someone disappears. Every day, this ship turns more into hers. You think that's a coincidence?" "No," Jeffu whispered. A week after the ship vanished from scans, a research vessel intercepted fragments of its emergency logs. Scrambled signals. Blips. Static embedded with nonsensical strings. Lace, kettle, where the snow forgets. One image transmitted clearly. A small wooden window in the side of a bulkhead. A candle burned behind it. The intercept team assumed viral corruption. They deleted it from record. Back on the ship, Vasilisa laughed for the first time. It was soft and low, more memory than sound. It echoed oddly in the command deck and caused 3 lights to short out. "Why are you doing this?" Jeffu asked her in the hour between sleep and shift, when the ship was most quiet and least real. "Doing what?" she replied, tilting her head. "Changing everything." "I'm not changing," she said. "I'm remembering." He felt colder after that. The night after Pliv's empty uniform was found folded neatly in the engine core, Stalk snapped. He gathered the remaining 7 crew members in the central chamber and gave the order to detain her with force. "She is not a girl," he roared. "She is infestation wrapped in innocence. This is not magic, it's manipulation. She's hollowing us out." No one moved. Then she arrived. She entered the room without sound, her presence pressing against every corner like smoke before fire. She didn't look angry, or even stern. She looked disappointed. "You were warned," she said gently. "We are the apex of 17 systems." Stalk shouted, weapon raised. "We took you. We brought you aboard like a specimen." "Yes," she said, stepping forward. "And didn't you wonder why I let you?" The room tilted. Reality bent. The ship's walls pulsed. Symbols ignited. Shadows twisted. One of the officers gasped as her mouth filled with leaves. Another folded, whispering in tongues, eyes wide with birch forests unseen since Earth's last ice age. Stalk fired. The blast struck the floor where she'd stood, but she was already behind him, pouring tea calmly into a second cup. "You have taken children before," she said, voice like snow falling in deep woods. "You took me thinking I was alone." Stalk stumbled back. "But Earth is never alone," she continued. "We do not forget. We do not forgive. We only wait." "You can't do this," he said. This is impossible." "Of course," she said. "That's why it works." He ran. They found pieces of his uniform in the corridor the next day. His boots were still laced. Jeffu did not cry. The ship stopped responding to galactic hails. Its signature no longer appeared on jump maps. It drifted, but not in space, in something else. A mythic place that had no coordinates. A space between memory and folklore. The crew, what remained, stopped asking questions. They drank her tea. They spoke softly. They began to hum. And one day, the AI reported with a voice like wind through branches, "We are no longer lost." That message was the last anyone outside the ship received. A week later, a salvage team found a single object floating where the Vicar ship had once been. A porcelain teacup, cracked, steaming faintly with pine-scented warmth. Earth received it by courier. No return address. The old man who opened the package smiled. He stirred in 2 lumps of sugar, sipped, and said, "She's doing fine." Then he locked the door and lit a candle in the window. Far away, the girl in the blue coat sat at the helm of the ship that no longer remembered being built, surrounded by stars that whispered in old tongues. She sipped her tea and waited. The great Concord summit convened with a quiet dread of creatures who had once believed themselves safe. 12 high representatives from across the known galaxy hovered, pulsed, stalked, or sat around the obsidian crescent table of the Hall of Judgment. The room was gravity-neutral, scent-scrubbed, and lined with kinetic memory metal, a design meant to symbolize equality. Instead, it looked like a mausoleum for failed ideas. No one acknowledged the empty chair at the far end. They all noticed it. Supreme Auditor Roth leaned forward, his neck fans rustling. "We are here to address a vanishing warship, a missing fleet-class collector vessel, and a growing metaphysical disturbance tied to an adolescent female from an underdeveloped human subspecies. Shall we begin?" Ambassador Carex of the Zydery clicked his chitin. "You say female, but the footage we recovered shows something else." Several representatives nodded. The hologram had gone viral through restricted channels. A pale human girl, barely 15 by Earth reckoning, sipping tea aboard the missing Vicar ship. The stars behind her spun the wrong way. "She is smiling," whispered Archmatriarch Vren of the Ural. And when a predator smiles, it is already too late. General Tmac of the Kragan scoffed. "This is overreaction. One lost ship does not a threat make." "That ship had 72 souls," murmured the Kalari archivist, flicking her fins nervously. "It also had psychic dampeners, quantum barriers, and a Tier 4 intelligence AI. And yet now it brews tea." The lights dimmed for effect. The Zarkan representative emitted a stream of low-frequency static that translated as disdain. "This is precisely the issue with your species' tendency toward drama. Tea? Smiling? These are human eccentricities, not evidence of galactic threat." "There are other indicators," said Director Enley of the Void Watch. He activated the primary display. Dozens of red blink points lit up the star chart. Every mark represented a ship that had passed near the last known coordinates of a Vicar collector. Every mark was now marked missing. Systems corrupted. Silence thickened. "Why have we summoned the humans?" asked General Tmac, fidgeting with his blast gauntlet. "To clarify the nature of this anomaly," replied Auditor Roth, "and to take responsibility should it be deemed sabotage." "They will lie," hissed Vren. "They will charm," corrected Enley. A low chime interrupted further debate. The chamber doors opened with a gentle, distinctly old-fashioned creak, a detail the building had not been programmed to include. She walked in slowly, smiling politely. Not the girl. Not Vasilisa. A woman in her 60s, small-framed, wearing a dove-gray coat and black walking shoes that clicked softly against the marble floor. She carried no datapad, no weapons, no entourage. Just a worn leather satchel, and a thermos that hissed faintly. The assembly stared. "I apologize for the delay," she said. "Traffic on the Singularity Strand was a mess this morning. Someone tried to parallel park a frigate." No one laughed, but some recognized the phrase. It was humor, Earth-style, misdirection by charm. She placed her satchel gently on the table and unscrewed the thermos lid. The scent of steeped leaves and lemon peel curled through the air. 3 species immediately recorded fluctuations in their neural rhythms. "I am Ambassador Miran Yaga, speaking on behalf of the United Terran Alliance," she said, folding her hands. "Shall we begin?" Tmac leaned forward. "Explain the child." "Which one?" Miran asked, gently stirring her tea. "The one your people let be taken by a collector ship." Miran tilted her head. "We didn't let her be taken." Vren hissed. "You planned this." "She chose," Miran said. "She volunteered." Several voices erupted in disbelief. Only the archivist remained still, eyes narrowed. "She's 15, spat Tmac. "She cannot consent." Miran took a sip of her tea. "You took children. We let you. For generations, you abducted, experimented. You assumed we hadn't noticed. That we were fragile, slow, disorganized." "And weren't you?" asked Enley. "We were watching," Miran said. "We were recording. And we were waiting for a time you would not expect. That's the thing about humans. We are not reactive. We are generational." "You mean this girl is a weapon?" Vren accused. "I mean she is a mirror," Miran replied calmly. "You took something that belonged to the forest. And now the forest is walking back." "You speak in riddles," grunted Tmac. "I speak in the only language you seem to understand, power wrapped in myth." Karax interrupted, gesturing sharply. "The ship. Where is the Vicar collector?" Miran smiled sadly. "It's not a ship anymore." "Then what is it?" "A house." The air thickened. "No coordinates. No beacon," she continued. "Just roots where engines were. Rooms that breathe. A hearth that doesn't need fire. And tea that tastes like your childhood, whether you remember it or not." "This is psychological manipulation," said Enley. "Weaponized nostalgia." "No," Miran said. "It's a choice. She gives each visitor tea. Some drink. Some do not. The ones who do, she lets go. Changed. Wiser. The ones who don't." Her words trailed off. She didn't need to finish. Auditor Roth tapped a claw slowly. What is your demand? Mirren raised a brow. You assume this is a negotiation. Earth has no authority. Earth has silence, she interrupted. We chose not to speak for a long time. That was your gift. And now we've taken it back. She removed a data chip from her satchel and slid it across the table. It stopped neatly before Enley. What is this? He asked. A record, she said, of every child you took from Earth. Every camp. Every probe. Every experiment. We mapped you better than you mapped yourselves. You didn't erase your footprints. We followed them. The room shifted. Some seats were empty now. The room had not blinked. It simply was. Mirren looked up. I recommend you stop asking about the girl. She is not your concern. She never was. Vren snarled. What is she? Mirren's voice lowered. You ever heard of Baba Yaga? The ancient myth, scoffed Carex. A witch. A house with chicken legs. A woman who eats the wicked. A grandmother who gives gifts. A ghost in the forest. She was never one thing. She was always what you deserved. She is fiction. No, Mirren said. She is tradition. She is justice passed down in lullabies. And we gave her a name again. Tmac stood. You threaten us with a child's tale? I threaten nothing, Mirren replied. I offer you tea. She poured into a paper cup and slid it across the table to him. He didn't touch it. She nodded. Then that's your answer. Enley stared at the cup. And if we demand her return? Mirren blinked slowly. You'll need to find her first. And then you'll have to knock on her door. And if she answers, you'd better hope she's still in the mood for visitors. They stared at the empty chair again. She was never yours to take, Mirren said, rising. You stepped into a story. Now you must see how it ends. As she reached the threshold of the chamber, Carex called out, desperation bleeding through his form. You cannot win a war with bedtime stories. She turned once, face kind. We don't tell stories to win wars, she said. We tell them so the next child knows not to lose. The doors closed behind her with a whisper like trees swaying in ancient wind. Outside, Earth's shuttle lifted off in silence, leaving behind a room filled with representatives who no longer looked confident, no longer sure the universe belonged to them. Inside, the cup still steamed. And somewhere impossibly far, or perhaps impossibly close, a house turned in the void. Its windows glowed. Inside, a girl smiled. And the kettle began to sing. The stars over Clivar. 9 were always known for their serenity, static, eternal, soothing. On the night the sky cracked open, none of them blinked. The surface sensors, however, registered a temperature drop of 17 degrees in under 10 seconds. The defense systems came online with the urgency of a forgotten child waking to thunder. By the time Planetary Command activated surface shields, the forests had already changed. Trees that hadn't grown in centuries now rose like silent towers of ash and birch. They rustled despite the still air. The animals, sensing something older than logic, fled into the dark. On the northern ridge, a wooden hut stood crookedly on the edge of a mining outpost. No landing craft had arrived. No vessel was detected. It was simply there, as though memory had bled into reality and left splinters behind. Admiral Rez-Zak of the Zalar Dominion arrived an hour later, eyes sharp, uniform perfect, flanked by 2 elite guards wearing full plasma harness. He did not ask questions. He gave orders. The house did not obey. She's here, his aide said, voice tight. She, Rez-Zak snapped. The human anomaly. The one from the collector ship. That was a myth. Disinformation seeded by Terran propaganda. We've wasted time entertaining Earths. She made a sun go cold. That stopped him. She made the stars spin wrong, Admiral. Rez-Zak stared at the hut. It had lace curtains in its windows. A small chimney puffed gentle smoke. A rocking chair sat empty outside, swaying too rhythmically for the wind. Approach it, he ordered. A drone hovered forward, sensors live, weapons primed. It reached the fence line, hovered, and fell out of the air. No blast. No jamming signal. Just silence, followed by the sudden decomposition of every wire and memory chip inside. The Admiral's hands tightened behind his back. Across the galaxy, others had begun to notice. At least 5 collector-class ships were missing. Entire planets had reported shifting forest lines and doors that hadn't been there the day before. In one case, a mining colony transmitted a frantic message. She was kind, until we lied. Then static. But none of the high races wanted war. Not with Earth. Not with whatever it had unleashed. Earth had sent no fleets. No declaration. No demands. Just a girl who smiled when she served tea. Now, she had built a house in the middle of an empire's stronghold world. Zach opened his comm. Initiate orbital strike. Level the structure. Sir, it's not showing up on telemetry. He blinked. It's right in front of me. Not according to the systems. Manual targeting, he growled. Still won't lock. Sir, it's as if it isn't real. Zach turned to his guards. Then we go in. I don't care what magic trick the Terrans have conjured. Nothing survives a full tactical sweep. He stepped through the gate. The guards followed. Behind them, the trees closed in. Inside the house, warmth enveloped the senses. A soft carpet underfoot. The scent of pine resin and honey. A fireplace glowed with steady flame. And there, sitting cross-legged on a cushion beside a table of carved bonewood, was Vasilisa. She had grown. No longer a girl. Not quite a woman. Something stretched in between. Something steady and ageless. Her eyes held a silence so deep it made clocks stutter. She wore the same coat, but now it fit like armor. Admiral, she said softly, would you like tea? Zach drew his weapon. You will explain what this is. Now, she nodded. Very well. The fire whispered. The wind paused. You are not the first, she said. There have been others. Curious. Proud. Frightened. They stepped into stories they thought were theirs to read. But stories have claws. I am not here to talk riddles. No, she said, pouring tea into 3 cups. You are here to survive one. A guard stepped forward, then folded. It was quiet. No sound. One moment he stood. The next he fell inward, as if folded into the shape of a thought that should not have been spoken aloud. The second guard raised his plasma rifle. She turned to him and said, Don't. He stopped. His eyes welled with tears. He dropped the weapon and sat down beside the hearth, suddenly smaller, suddenly young. Zach took a step back. What are you? He whispered. I am what you were warned about when your kind still hunted by moonlight, she said. I am what grandmothers whispered about when the fire burned low. I am not rage. I am not war. I am the memory of what you should have feared before you thought you were safe. The fire went out, and yet the room was still bright. Outside, planetary defense grids screamed and failed. The orbital fleet, programmed to follow logic, began to report trees growing inside its own systems. One captain screamed as a forest took root inside his bridge. The sky rippled. The stars bent. Zach tried to fire. The gun turned to ash. Please, he whispered. What do you want? She sipped her tea. You took children. You broke them open like toys. You measured pain as data. You called it science. You thought Earth didn't notice. But we did. You're just one. She shook her head. No, I am the first. She stood. The room stretched with her. The ceiling grew high. The walls pulled wide. The house was no longer a house. It was a shape made of will and story and old grief. You turned Earth into a myth, she said. You made us the quiet ones. The watchers. You saw a smile and thought that meant you were safe. Her voice lowered. But humans bury things. We bury wrath in lullabies. We tuck rage beneath bedtime stories. You should have asked why our monsters always look like us. The trees screamed. In orbit, Zach's flagship blinked from existence. Not destroyed. Forgotten. As if it had never been built. She walked toward him. Each step echoed. We didn't declare war, she said. We offered you tea. He fell to his knees. You could have said yes. The walls of the house vanished. They were standing on an endless plain of snow beneath a sky that twisted wrong. 1,000 doors stood in the white. each one old, each one waiting. She pointed behind him. One door opened. "You may walk through," she said. "You'll remember nothing. You'll live your days as a gardener. You will fear deep woods. You will never speak of stars." He stared. "Or," she said gently, "you may stay." He walked. He did not look back. The door closed. She turned. In another part of the galaxy, aboard a dreadnought built from the bones of collapsed stars, a signal pulsed. Earth has responded. The Galactic Council received the message. A chair sat empty. None dared take it. Ambassador Mirren sat in silence, a cup of still warm tea before her. She smiled. "We warned them." Across the stars, doors began appearing. In places where silence had reigned. In stations long abandoned. In warships floating through dead sectors. Each door bore a mark. 3 scratches curved like a crescent moon. And those who opened them did not return. At the edge of the known universe, where physics buckled and dreams whispered back, a girl once taken now watched. She did not speak. She waited. Because she had only just begun,